Hello and welcome to Talk Ag to Me, the podcast dedicated to improving ag literacy around the globe. I'm your host, Brennan Black, and in today's episode, we're going to be talking about the career of an ag teacher. And here to help us with an inside look himself is Mr. Dave Caetano.
Hello, Brennan. How you doing?
Pretty good. How are you?
Very good. Very good.
So you want to give our audience a little bit of an introduction as to who you are?
Well, my name is Dave Caetano. I'm an ag teacher for the Tulare High School District, and this is my 40th year teaching ag, and so at all 40 years at Tulare High School. I was born and raised in Kingsburg, graduated from Kingsburg High School, went to Reedley College, went to Fresno State, got my master's from Concordia. So it's a lot of years of learning a lot of stuff, but probably some of the best stuff I ever learned has been, from the actual, participation, hands-on education that goes on from year to year.
Awesome. And from what I understand, you're going to be leaving us pretty soon here. You're getting ready to retire. Is that right?
Yeah, I will be retiring at the end of this school year, and it's not that I don't enjoy the job, and I'm still having a lot of fun, but it just may be time. 40 years in the classroom is a long time. I'm still going to do some work for the district. I will be continuing with the 8th grade ag educational program that I started 3 years ago, and that thing has exploded, and so. My wife and I are kind of both going to tag team that. She'll be retiring as well, and so we're going to tag team that thing a little bit and continue it for the high school district. And I think it's a wonderful program that really kind of gets the junior high level kids at least somewhat exposed to agriculture and the importance that it plays in their lives. And then my goal and plan is to make sure that it's a direct connection right to the high school ag program, that the kids are aware that, hey, if I like this, I can go to the next level. So that's what we're doing.
Yeah, definitely. And you hit the nail on the head talking about the importance of talking to these middle school kids and kind of getting at them young. This is a kind of a newer program, as you're explaining. What was kind of your inspiration for starting up this 8th grade or middle school ag program?
Well, there have been middle school ag programs that are actually FFA programs across the nation. The FFA has a program that the Discovery program that actually kind of gets that going. Mm-hmm. But this was more generated by a grant, the CTE grant that came from the state of California. Mm-hmm. And our district applied for the grant, received it, and then one of the things we were able to do was tie into, with the ag program, the funding was available there to share some of those monies with the junior high programs. So the junior high schools took advantage of that, and by having that funding, we've been able to build gardens and do some of the the things that can aid and assist those teachers at those schools, because each of the schools has an actual teacher teaching ag. They may not all be credentialed ag teachers, but they're interested and they're doing a magnificent job, and we have seen the benefits of those kids coming in directly into our program. That our kids that probably wouldn't be taking ag right now if it wasn't for the exposure they got from that 8th grade program. So that's why I think it's such a beneficial program. I mean, we are at 900 kids right now, and I think that a number of those kids are here, based on the exposure they got, or the experiences they had in that 8th grade class.
Awesome. So that kind of brings me into another question I was going to ask, which is, over your 4 years of teaching, what major changes have you seen take place in the ag classroom, whether it be in the middle school or in the high school level, that have that you've seen been pretty significant?
Well, in 40 years, I mean, you have to understand that when I started, it was the 1970s. Right. And it's 2019. So there's been a massive transformation. The one thing that has changed, that hasn't changed, it seems that the pendulum in education swings, and it'll swing all the way over one direction and all the way over to another direction. Right now, the pendulum is swung to the very positive direction of career technical education, vocational education, and of course that means ag education. And our elected officials understand the value, or at least they seem to be understanding the value of that. Maybe not every kid's going to go to a major university and get an education. We still need people that are going to roll up their sleeves and get their hands dirty a little bit. And so in 40 years, I've seen that pendulum swing both directions, and some where we were fighting like crazy just to save our programs. But the things that have changed is obviously there's a greater disconnect now more than ever with students coming into high school that don't have any real understanding of of how their food and fiber is produced. And that is it's almost an epidemic proportion, and not just here at Tulare. It's nationwide, in some cases I almost think worldwide, but nationwide for sure.
Yeah.
And the problem is that even in a community like Tulare, which is basically it's an ag-based community,
Right.
we have a tremendous number of kids that have no clue as to how their food is being produced, what's involved, even though they can't hardly, walk out of the door of their house and go, 5 minutes from their house and be right smack dab in the middle of agriculture.
Right.
And so that part of it alone is scary. If you get into the metropolitan areas, the large cities in the country, where people just have no clue then their food comes from a grocery store, it's a real challenge. It's a huge challenge, and it's something that agriculture is aware of. I don't think that it's anything great and profound that I just came up with. It's been something that's been there for a long time. In 40 years, I've seen that that gap grow from some to just a tremendous amount right now. And of course the biggest change that I see right now, and I don't know if it's a good or bad change, I haven't really quite got a full handle on it yet, is the massive change in communication technology. This podcast is a great example. When I first started teaching, there was very, 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 very little use of computers, almost none. And now you don't get up in the morning without having to check a computer for something.
Right.
And iPhones and all the rest of that. I think a lot of it obviously is good. It's made the world a smaller place. The connectivity between people all over the planet is good, but I also think sometimes it's made us a little bit lazy. And it creates a whole nother element of challenge to teachers.
Yep.
If in the past, if I had to discipline a student, it was if they said something foolish or did something foolish, that's one thing. Now, if they say or do something foolish, it could be put online, and thousands and thousands of people will see the same stupid foolish thing or
Right.
hear the same stupid foolish thing. So it's a real challenge, not only for for education and for ag teachers, but for parents and just society in general. I think it's obviously one of the things not going to go away. It's only going to continue to get more entrenched into society and lives. And I would like to think that we're going to use it for the greater good of all mankind. But it's another facet of life that as educators we have to understand that we have to be able to deal with and control and as much as possible. But it certainly is the biggest change I've seen. The bottom line is, though, as far as kids still want to learn, I think, for the most part. I think there's some students that get a little bit lazy, I think, and there is almost a degree of entitlement by society today, and I don't know if it's just young people, but sometimes that hard work ethic is kind of lost a little bit. It's not as prevalent as it was when I first started. I mean, there's still, I think, a lot of people that want to get to work and get after it and appreciate the value of hard work, but it needs to be constantly reinforced that is an important aspect of success in life is going to be hard work. There's just no getting around it. And I mean, there are those fortunate few that have something dumped in their lap, but for the most part, you still have to work hard to achieve things.
Right. No, definitely, I agree. And I kind of like to go back to one of the things you said about how we have such a massive population of Americans right now that know little to nothing about where their food comes from. I mean, I think it's somewhere around 72% of Americans don't, they think their food just shows up in a grocery store. What do you think that us in the agriculture world, and especially us going into ag education, can do to try to win back some of that population if we can?
Well, I think it's bigger than just ag education. I think it's the ag industry as a whole. I think it's our elected officials. I think it's just society in general. I mean, there is a large segment of society that is concerned about how their food and fiber is being produced, but it's the resources they go to find out about that.
Right.
That's almost the bigger issue. The bigger issue isn't so much that, if people don't know, there are avenues that they can learn about it. But the problem is there's a lot of negative, direction they can go with groups and organizations out there that have a political agenda. The bottom line is that, we are, the agricultural system in the United States is the most sophisticated, most advanced system in the world. And we have the safest food system in the world. Unless they and people have to understand that, agriculturalists and farmers in general aren't going to do anything to harm, the consuming public. They're not going to do anything to harm the environment, at least not intentionally,
Right.
because that's what's going to put the beans on the table.
Right.
And so I think that aspect of it is one of the biggest challenges that not only are we facing now, I think it's going to be ongoing, because I don't think those numbers that you gave are going to get smaller.
Right.
I think, it's just going to continue to get larger and larger, because the more and more people we have, the more and more people are going to be further removed, because quite frankly, nobody is making the effort to go out and learn how to farm, or all they know is they go to the grocery store, they go to the fruit and produce section, or they go to the meat section, or they go to the canned product section, and they get what they want, and they get it at an incredibly affordable rate. And that's all being lost in this mix. And the constant regulations, and the constant almost borderline harassment that farmers and the agriculture industry receives from a consuming public is almost mind-boggling. And it almost defies logic in how consumers that are getting this safe, affordable product don't understand that it's a lot of hard work, and there's a lot of things that farmers have to deal with, and to constantly try to establish parameters that farmers have to abide by, when these people have no clue as to what actually goes on an operational production facility, is almost idiotic. And so it's an ongoing battle, and the one thing I do know is that everybody gets up every day and wants to eat.
Right.
And I think until they understand that if the United States agricultural farm system ever stops producing like it does, then people will then fully understand that how important agriculture is, and they're only going to understand that when they become hungry. We've been a society that has never ever had an opportunity to starve. Even in the Great Depression, we were able to produce enough food and fiber to take care of our country.
Right.
And there are parts of the world that have, as a result of war or famine or whatever it is, they've had to endure starvation from their society.
Right.
And our country's never done that. And so all the bad mouthing and all the the negative comments that go towards agriculture is because quite frankly, our society is fat, happy, and sassy. And I don't mean that in a figurative way. I mean the bottom line is that they just don't understand what it's like not to have food whenever they want it.
Exactly.
So.
Yeah, no, definitely. Kind of going along the lines of one of the other points you made about how with new advancements in technology, and with having almost every student in a classroom has a computer nowadays, and teachers having to find new ways to compete for their attention with that sort of technology apparent, it kind of brought to mind the idea that, of course, through your 4 years of teaching, you've probably experienced some really beneficial parts of the job, and some disadvantages as well. Would you mind kind of sharing both sides of that coin there?
Well, I think the technology definitely has it definitely has a place in education. I think to make it all encompassing is not the right approach. I think the right approach is to combine good practical application where you're going to have to roll your sleeves up a little bit and get work done, and then utilize that information you've learned, then put it into use on a computer where you can become more efficient. I mean, obviously, the efficiency now is across the board. When we look at we have pieces of equipment now, tractors that run at $500,000, and the old adage is you can just take a wrench and a pair of pliers and fix it. Well, no, you're going to start with a computer. You're going to find out what's wrong. You're going to do a diagnostic, and then you're going to look at the possibility of needing something other than maybe just a screwdriver, or a wrench, or a pair of pliers to repair it. So, that technology is real, and we have to utilize it. But to think that all education is going to be computerized, no. I still think that somebody has to go out there and grow those crops. Somebody has to go out there and feed those animals. Somebody has to go out there and process those crops and animals that are being raised by the farmers, and somebody has to get those processed commodities and products to the retail outlets. And that requires people that have got to understand that there's still work involved to get it to that final product, and that is our consumer.
Right.
And so, yeah, I mean, it's interesting because through the evolvement of my career, I've seen that full transformation from no computers to now where it's almost all computerized.
Right.
And it's not just computers; it's just the technology is out there, and some of that technology is scientific technology. We have the opportunity to produce through genetically modified products that are being grown now, where we can use less water and less chemicals to produce more yield per acre. And we're going to have over 200, but we're going to have over 9 billion people by the time we hit about 2050.
Mm-hmm.
So and I try to explain that to my freshmen. It says by the time that you're in your your mid to late 30s or 40s, there's going to be 9 billion people on this planet.
Right.
And when they start putting that into perspective like that, well, that's the same age as my mom and dad, and there's going to be this many people. Where's another third growth in population going to be able to be, and
Right.
and how's it going to affect the planet? I mean, you're going to need more space, more resources available to the population in terms of water and so forth, and you're going to need to grow more with less. So if people are thinking that that we are going to be able to produce the food and the fiber that is needed to feed this population, not only nationally but internationally, they are out of their minds if they think we're going to do it and with using things just like organic production and so on and so forth. Organic's a nice way to farm, and it's certainly there's a market for it out there, and it is a farming system that if people want that process, that's fine. But the reality is that we're going to have to utilize all the advanced technology we have in order to survive as a human race. And I will say this, that, and I have told this to my students over the course of time, you can. When I ask them what their career choices are, well, I want to do this or I want to do that, and that's fine. I said, but for those of you who don't want to be farmers, why? Well, I don't want to do this. I don't want to do that because it's too much work, or I don't want to get dirty. The bottom line is, as long as there's people on the planet, we're going to need food.
Right.
And if we stop producing food, there won't be any people on the planet.
Mm-hmm.
It's just that simple.
Yep.
It is not any more complicated than that. You don't need to have a Harvard degree to figure that out.
Right.
And so all this, all the things that we're dealing with in terms of the challenges are real, and they are solvable. Mm-hmm. But people are going to have to understand and learn about the value of agriculture. And I don't see it as being something that we're going to resolve, real soon. I think the only time it'll be completely resolved is when food prices get up to that break point where people complain and say, okay, we got to have cheaper food, or it's not available. Now we're getting hungry. That's when they're fully going to appreciate farmers.
Right. Yeah. Do you think that, kind of going off on a little bit of a tangent here, but do you think that realization is something that they're going to come to pretty soon, or is it, do you think it might take something a little bit more extreme?
If I had a crystal ball, I could tell you. I don't know. I hope not.
Right.
I hope that society, and people in general are smart enough. I think a person is smart enough, but I think people as a group sometimes, kind of get on, off the beaten path a little bit in terms of what's really important. Mm-hmm. And again, it's because, they're fat, happy, and sassy. And if they're a little more hungry, they say, let's let the farmers do what needs to be done in order
right.
to, get everybody fed.
Right.
And I hope that society, gets it, and
right.
they get it relatively soon. And I'm hoping that my grandson, doesn't have to fight this battle, throughout his entire, career, mm-hmm. if he chooses to go into education and into agriculture or production agriculture. But, I just hope for the sake of, all humanity, that people start to understand what farmers are doing. Mm. And, there's still a lot of land in the world that isn't, producing yet, that can produce, I think, based on the technology we have available. We can devise crops and products that will grow in very difficult climates or very sparsely rough terrains. We can get stuff to grow. Mm-hmm. But that's just something I think is going to be ongoing, and it all starts with education. Right. It all starts with education, and I don't think educating at the high school level is where it needs to start. I actually think that. And we have education programs, as far down as first grade and second grade now, mm-hmm. that some ag is being taught to the elementary school kids, and they need to know. They need to understand where their food and fiber is coming from, and that that jar of milk doesn't come from a refrigerator in a grocery store. It comes out of a cow, and right. and that hamburger that they're eating, was an animal walking around at one time.
Right.
And so, these are the kinds of things that all agriculturalists, every aspect of agriculture, everybody needs to be out promoting and advocating what agriculture is doing, because then at least for a fact that the information that's coming out of those folks is correct.
Right.
The information that's coming out of groups and organizations that have a political agenda is tainted, and it quite frankly isn't necessarily the truth.
Right.
And so it's really important that all agriculture, all aspects of agriculture, makes a concerted effort to make that a priority in their operation.
Yeah, no, I completely agree, especially about the having to teach kids at an extremely young age. I think that it's pretty important that we start teaching them. I always ask the question, when do we stop teaching kids that milk comes from cows, or that that their burger was at one point a sear or a bull, or at some point that their pig's gonna become bacon. It's something that I learned when I was growing up, and something that I think somewhere along the line we kind of just either kids in school at some point stopped learning about it, or we stopped reinforcing that idea, and eventually they just forgot it, or something happened along the way that made them lose track of what's really going on. And it's something that I think that like Ag in the Classroom, for example, is doing a good job of, where they have a whole lot of new classroom activities to do with young kids to try to get them more into agriculture and more aware of what they're eating. And so I agree with your point. I think that we need to be focusing on the younger generations, on educating them before it's too late and they start being fed the
Well, I think the problem is too, a lot of times, the young people, if they're not being educated, about the basics of agriculture, if they're being influenced by, parents at home, and I've and all the times I've been in the classrooms, I'll have a kid that say, well, I'm vegetarian, or my parents are vegan, or, quite frankly, I don't care, because no matter what they're eating an agricultural commodity.
Right.
If they choose not to eat meat, that's fine. But they're going to be eating something,
right?
And they're going to be eating something that a farmer has grown. So I don't care. It really makes no difference to me what what you choose to consume. But you're consuming an agricultural commodity or product,
Yep.
Whether it be plant-based, animal-based, it's irrelevant. You are consuming an agricultural commodity, and so to sit there and say, well, I don't want to eat meat products. Okay, that's fine. Maybe you don't, but somebody else does.
Right.
And people just need to understand that just because they have a certain lifestyle, that their lifestyle isn't necessarily the correct lifestyle. I mean, if you're eating food, whether it be plant, animal, it doesn't really make any difference. It still is a consumable food product that is going to be beneficial to the health and well-being of our society.
Yeah, no, I agree completely. So getting back a little bit to the ag teacher job description, when I was doing the episode with Lindsay, we talked about how it was an ag teacher appreciation episode, and we talked about how we view what ag teachers do through us from the student perspective, seeing them come out on after school hours and helping us with our projects, or talking to us when they don't have necessarily time to do so, and talking to us about what's going on in our lives and that sort of thing, all the things that they do outside of just teaching us about agriculture. I kind of just like to know what that experience is like from the teacher side of it.
Well, I think that the most important thing is, in terms of being a really good ag teacher, is that you have to understand that you teach from 8 to 3, and then you work from 3 to 8, and that's kind of the deal, because to truly be a good ag teacher, you have to understand that there's going to be a lot of hours after school, on weekends, during the summer. It's kind of like growing products. Ag education is the same way. You're constantly working with kids all year round. There is really no true summer break, or there's no true break. And so when you come into ag education, it's kind of a unique beast. I mean, there are a lot of highly qualified teachers that will teach the core curriculum, the core classes 10 months out of the year, and then they try to reboot during the summer a little bit and give them a chance to catch their breath, because the challenges inside of a classroom and the stress and strain in a classroom is far greater now than I think it's ever been. And so if I was a young teacher coming today, it'd almost be one to think about, well, how much of this do I want to deal with on a day-to-day basis? So as an ag teacher, though, the thing that makes the job worthwhile is you get to see your students' growth and development from a 14-year-old freshman to an 18-year-old, and then turn into a young adult, and then go out and they're working in the world of work. And at 40 years in the classroom, in my case, I not only have seen students come through, I'm seeing their children come through now. I haven't seen a grandchild yet, but because if I had one, I'd have been out of here already. But I have a lot of former students' kids sitting in my classroom, and I had a lot of these former students, and some were great students, and some were good students, some were marginal students, and some were bad students. And the funny thing is that when I noticed these kids come in, well, I had your mom or I had your dad, and and then you see what kind of kid they produce, and it's a pretty good student doing a good job, and sometimes it's from a great student when the parents were in high school, or no, they've grown up, and that's the real key right there, is to watch that growth and development, to get to see this young kid turn into a young adult and a positive product of society, and giving back to the community and so on and so forth. That's the real reward in being an ag teacher. They pay us to do the job, but the real payment is really coming from the satisfaction and the gratification in what we do, and all those extra hours is the relationships that you develop in the job with the kids. And a lot of times, it far exceeds the general relationship that most teachers are going to get, because if you don't have the time to spend outside of a classroom, with a student, either in the evenings or after school or on weekends or whatever, or the summers, and you get a chance to find out what really makes that kid tick, what their home lives are like, and the whole thing, and it almost puts you in a capacity of a mentor, a guidance counselor, sometimes a pseudo parent. I mean, you wear a lot of hats.
Yeah.
When you're an ag teacher, and you just have to understand that's the deal when you start to do it, and so if when I talk to young ag teachers now, or students that are going to become ag teachers, I try to get them to understand that as long as you're willing to work hard and can relate to the kids, you're going to be a successful ag teacher, because the bottom line is, if you don't necessarily teach them everything they need to know out of a textbook or out of a computer now, if you're teaching them life skills that are going to benefit them as they get into college, or they get into the world of work, and give them the basics of understanding that being honest and hardworking and good with people is ultimately what you want to do, and they'll be successful. They will be successful in life. They will be successful as employees or employers. They will be successful as parents. They'll be successful as spouses. I mean, it just goes on and on and on. It's all interconnected, and that's how it all works. And that's what being an ag teacher, and that part of it hasn't changed in 40 years. So the relationships that I had back then and the relationships that I have right now, and that connectivity with the young people is what really makes an ag teacher successful, and somebody that the students are going to remember forever and ever. They're not going to remember a great test you gave. They're going to remember something that you did, whether it be an act of kindness, or went out of your way to help them with a sick animal, or spent the extra hours to make them really good at a leadership activity, or whatever it is. Those are the things they're going to remember. And so when I get done here in the next few months, I'm hoping that when we get together and I run into my former students, and I've been having it happen for a long time, but that's the part that's where I really feel good about what I did. The high school district is going to pay me to do a job so I can put some beans on the table and have some clothes to wear and a roof over my head. But the real rewarding payment is going to be in watching those young people develop.
Well, I'm definitely glad to hear you say that. It's nice to know. I mean, coming from high school, I mean, you have a lot of your main campus teachers where it's hard to tell whether or not they care about you, or if they just they're trying to just teach you what to teach you because they're trying to get their paycheck. There are some here and there that you're pretty able to connect with, but I haven't met an ag teacher yet that hasn't shown that they care about their students, and and just taking that extra mile to really get into their lives and help them be better at what they do.
Yeah, and I think there's that the ag teachers have a lot more opportunities to get connected with the kids, unlike a normal classroom teacher that and there are a lot of really, really good classroom teachers that really connect well with kids just based on the opportunities they have within their own classroom.
Right.
But when you start looking at the teachers that will be advisors to certain programs, or they're coaches on the campus. That's kind of like an ag teacher where they're getting above and beyond. And there are a lot of really good, compassionate, caring teachers in the system, and there are some ag teachers that don't get it, and they usually will not survive very long in the industry, or they just simply won't have a lot of students who want to work with them. And then the kids have almost a sixth sense when it comes to understanding or realizing if a teacher truly cares about them and what they're doing and what they're trying to accomplish.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, you're always going to get kids that don't pick it up fast, as fast as others. But the bottom line is that they will see it if you work hard enough at it. And so, I think that's the important thing. So, as a young teacher coming in right now, and you're one of a number that we have that are out there right now that are going to become teachers. You have the right tools to be successful, I think, because you've watched the models that you've had at this program, and kind of in general, just in ag education in general, watching other teachers as well, not just the ones within your own high school. Those are the models you want to follow. Though that's the replicas you want to try to become. And so I think that's kind of the bottom line. And there's a lot of demand. There's a lot of opportunities for young people that want to go into ag education. There's a lot more demand there is supply, and that's always a good position to be in.
Right.
And it's been like that for the last 15 to 20 years. There has not been enough qualified young teachers coming out to meet the demands of the job in the industry.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think the last question I have for you is just for someone entering the ag education, and you kind of talked about it a little bit just now, but for someone entering the ag education scape and wanting to be an ag teacher or wanting to be in that career field, what advice would you have for them?
Well, I think that, I kind of touched on a few things. The number one thing is just be willing to work hard, and that's kind of thing. Be receptive and understand that you're going to be dealing with a lot of different kinds of kids inside of a classroom, and that they have different personalities, they have different needs, and so forth. And you got to try to find that spot in the middle where you can kind of meet the needs of them all without, you definitely don't want to play favorites. You want to, try to treat them, treat everybody the same in the classroom and run your classroom consistently day in and day out. That's one of the things that some teachers, if they're, if they have inconsistent personalities and they're moody some days and happy as a clam the next day, students, don't know what to expect. And
Right.
if you go in there and you're consistent and they know you're working hard for them, and you come in and you have something to teach them with. I mean, obviously now with all the technology, you can kind of put on a show for them and entertain if you want, and so many resources. But the bottom line is be willing to work hard and try to relate to the students, and understand where they're coming from as much as possible. And I can assure you, it's not any more complicated than that. You will be extremely successful for 40 years, and that's how it works. So, and I think that that there's still a great need for good qualified young teachers. Not all kids are going to learn something out of a book or out of a computer.
Right.
They have to go out there and be taught. This is how you grow this product, or this is how you raise this animal, or this is how you do this. And so it's really, really important. So. And I hope we continue to find good people that want to teach, because I can't think of a more rewarding discipline to be teaching than teaching people how to feed themselves.
Right. Yeah. No, I agree. Well, those are all the questions I had for you. So, I mean, if you have anything else you want to add on.
No, I think it's. I probably said plenty, and I just hope that that somebody gets something out of this, and that it will pay dividends down the road for them. That's kind of the important thing. So, and I want to thank you for doing this. This was fun.
Yeah.
And if you ever need any more, insight, or I'll be more than happy to share it with you. So, thank you.
Yeah. No, I appreciate it. Thank
Okay.
you.
Very good.
Yeah. And I'd like to thank all of our audience for tuning in. And I'd like to wish Mr. Caetano here a happy retirement. And I'm sad to see him go, but I know it's not the last time I'll see him. So, I mean, not really worth getting sad over. But yeah, that's all I have for you guys. So thank you so much for tuning in. And don't forget, if you ate today, thank a farmer.